Go ahead.
Sure, it's J-A-Y, Bonafide, B-O-N-A-F-E-D-E.
Thank you.
No problem.
And your title?
Communications Coordinator for the West New York region. It says Greater Buffalo chapter.
Okay, of the American Red Cross.
Yes.
Okay. All right, so describe to me the situation that happened this morning.
Well, we had about 40 residences that were evacuated, and so in connection with the County Office of Emergency Management, we opened a shelter, and as you see here at the Brocton Central School, we have our volunteers set up and ready. Some of those evacuees, they were initially sent to the Brocton Fire Hall, and then the location was moved here for the shelter. None of the residents have come up, but we had about 36 people that had signed in rather, at the fire hall. So right now I think they're kind of waiting to see as the health department in the county, kind of assess the situation to see if they'll be allowed back into their homes. So we obviously hope that all this setup is for nothing and that those folks are able to get in. But if they're not, as you can see, we've got our volunteers ready. This is what we do, and so we'll give them a place to stay and here at the gym, and we'll have some food ready, and we'll be prepared to open that shelter and keep it open as long as we need to.
I know, how often does this happen around here that you need to open a shelter?
Not very. We're lucky, but we're prepared. We just did a region-wide drill in the Rochester area. That was the scenario for that was a hurricane, but people prepare. This is what we do. We practice for it, and even if we don't do it here, a lot of the people have not only taken the training so they know what this situation will entail, but they'll also, we have a lot of our volunteers that will deploy outside of the region to to disasters that have happened elsewhere, and then they can use that experience and that expertise when it comes time to do something here locally.
Okay, so could you estimate what's about the capacity that you would have in this gym?
I don't know. This is a pretty good-sized gym. They would figure. We'd have a shelter manager figure that out. I'm not aware of that, but we'd obviously have to have space set up for a number of cots so that they'd have room and a little common area where they could eat, so they're not eating in the same area where they're sleeping. I wouldn't want to guess, not knowing for sure, but this is a pretty good-sized room, and we're lucky to have partners like the school. We have a number of shelter locations that are on, we've assessed and worked with, and partners that will allow us to do that, and this is a standby location here, and so we're lucky to have that and be able, because this is really a good location to have this much space, this much room. The school is great for us if it was something longer term, especially in the summer when the kids aren't in school, because we have access to a locker room for showers and for people to really lead as close to a normal life as you ever could in a situation like this.
So do you anticipate at this point anyone staying here for overnight?
I think it would depend on what the county and the health department finds, and obviously the weather too. There's still more rain, but my understanding is that the area that was evacuated initially was only accessible by one bridge, and so we wanted to get the people out before that happened. And so I think what they're doing now is going in and assessing that area. But that's not our role. Our role is to be prepared to shelter folks if necessary and provide that immediate emergency care that we do even after a single-family house fires. It'd obviously be a little larger scale, but we're prepared to do that if necessary. We'll have our own disaster assessment teams, but we're not the ones who are going to determine if the folks can get back into the house. We'll determine, a damage or something like that, and what kind of assistance might be necessary. But we'll leave that to the county emergency officials to see whether or not those folks will be able to get into their homes.
Okay, and you said about 40 residences have been evacuated.
It's my
all
understanding.
In the same area?
It's my understanding. Yeah, I have not been at the area. I couldn't tell you exactly where it was. It sounded like a trailer park, but I don't know that information for sure. For sure. But yeah, it was approximately 40 residences of different types, and we had, like I said, about 36 people that signed in at the fire hall. But I think the fire hall is a little closer to that location, so I think they're just kind of staying in that area as the county goes in and determines whether or not they can get back into their homes at this point.
Okay.
Situation like this, if it keeps raining, was on a call. There's a lot of flooding statewide too. So like the eastern part of our region, which is the Rochester side and beyond, is already getting ready. They haven't been affected. They're getting ready to send some people to central New York and the Albany area where people have been a little more affected. There's numerous shelters there, as well. So we'll continue to monitor throughout, the region and see if there's any additional needs. A perfect situation for us is that everyone's able to go back to their homes and we don't have, anything to do. That would be great, for all of our volunteers, and more importantly for the residents if they're able to get back into their homes. But we're happy to, this is what we do. This is what we prepare for every day, and this is, thankfully, thanks to the support of the community, we're able to do this and help those neighbors in need if necessary.
And now there's no one here right now, but could you just describe to me the atmosphere that was going on at the fire hall? Were people nervous? Was there crying?
I wasn't there myself. I just
Oh,
came
okay.
down from the city, from Buffalo.
Okay.
But I didn't, normally I think just having been in situations before, I can speak to in general. It's obviously an anxious situation when you have to leave your home at a moment's notice. That's why one of the things that we do is encourage preparedness, having a kit ready, having a plan in mind if you do have, whether it be a flood or a hurricane or a tornado or, whatever, just kind of having an emergency plan and an emergency kit in place to try to reduce some of that anxiety. But I think, people are always wanting information in these types of situations. When can I get back into my home? Do we know what's happened there? That sort of thing. And I think that's probably why there's nobody here right now. They're kind of waiting to get that answer, because obviously everyone would rather stay in their own home than stay in a shelter. And we appreciate that and feel the same way. So I'm sure that's why you don't see anyone that's made that move quite yet, because they're hoping that the reports are positive and that they'll be able to get back into their homes.
Right, and so you mentioned kits, having a plan, things like
Yeah.
that. What else can people do to be prepared for this kind of weather?
Well, one of the things is to know the difference between a warning and a watch. That the warning means something's coming, and to be aware. And you find that stuff out by monitoring the media, by having a battery-powered radio in case power goes out, because flooding can cause power lines to go down. Having a plan is very important. Knowing where you can go, where you're going to meet. So if your family gets separated, you can contact each other and do something like that. Having a kit with some food and water, a few days non-perishable food and some water, in case you can't get to a location like this right away for some reason, so you're prepared. One of the other things you can do, the Red Cross offers free mobile apps for iPhone and Android devices. There's not a specific one for flooding, but the hurricane app will not only give you some preparedness tips, but will also alert you to different weather warnings in the area, including usually flooding, definitely tornadoes and hurricanes and that sort of thing. There's a number of those: hurricane, wildfire, tornado, earthquake, and then there's a first aid app as well.